Outward forms and symbols must be used to convey intellectual conception, said Abdu'l-Baha. Knowledge is said to be of two kinds. One is the knowledge of things perceptible to the senses, that is to say, things which the eye or ear or taste or smell or feelings can perceive, which are called objective or sensible realities. The sun is sensible because it can be seen. Sound is sensible because we can hear it. Perfumes is sensible because it can be inhaled and the sense of smell perceive them. Food are sensible because the palate can perceive its sweetness, sourness, and saltiness. Heat and cold are sensible because the feelings perceive them. These are what they call objective or sensible realities. The other kind of knowledge is intellectual. That is to say, it's a reality of the intellect, and it has no outward forms and symbols. For instance, love is an intellectual reality, and for this reality, the eye does not see, the ear does not hear, the taste does not perceive, the smell does not discern, and the touch does not feel. In the same way, the human spirit is an intellectual reality. But in order for us to understand the intellectual realities, we are obliged to use outward forms and symbols. For instance, when we feel sad or sorrow, we would say that our heart is oppressed, enlarged, and broken. Although our heart is not physically oppressed, enlarged, and broken into pieces, but we use these outward forms and symbols to explain intellectual realities. All living things signifies composition, said Abdu'l-Baha, and their death decomposition. But the universal elements or atoms do not become absolutely annihilated and destroyed. No, their non-existence is simply transformation. For instance, when man's physical body is annihilated, it becomes dust. It does not become absolutely non-existent. It still exists in the shape of dust, but transformation has taken place. So this composition is accidentally decomposed. The annihilations of all other beings are the same. For existence do not become absolute non-existence, and absolute non-existence do not become existence. Now concerning formation, which is explained by Abdu'l-Baha, that formation are of three kinds, and three kinds only. They are accidental formations, necessary formation, and voluntary formation. The coming together of various elements to give rise to the existence of beings cannot be accidental. For every effect, there must be a cause. They cannot be compulsory, for then the formation is an inherent property of the constituent part. An inherent property of a thing cannot be separated from the main thing itself. For instance, revealing things is an inherent property of light. Expanding elements is an inherent property of heat. The solar rays are the inherent properties of the sun. Under these circumstances, decomposition of any formation is impossible, for an inherent property of a thing cannot be separated from the main thing itself. That will leave us with one formation, that is a voluntary, an inner force which is described as the ancient power, caused the coming together of various elements, and every formation gives rise to a distinct being. Now, about the stage of the superior stage, Abdu'l-Baha explained, is an obstacle to understanding, to the inferior state. So no matter how much the material evolve, the minerals evolve, they will never be able to get the power of growth that the plants possess. No matter how much we look after the trees, they will never be able to get this power of sight or hearing or the other senses that the animals possess. No matter how much we teach an animal, let's say we teach a monkey, we'll never be able to understand the abstract knowledge of man that the earth orbits the sun in 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes and a fraction. We'll never understand the abstract knowledge of man that the earth spins on its axis in 24 hours. We'll never understand the abstract knowledge of man that the earth tilts 24 degrees and is the cause of the 4 seasons of the earth. But this lack of knowledge of the animals does not prove there is no such thing called the abstract knowledge that man possesses. Only that man is in a superior stage and the animals in the inferior stage. And it's impossible for the superior to be understood by the inferior. It's the same way with the next life. The materialists argue they have no proof of the next life. They have never seen it. Therefore, there is no such thing, or it does not exist, the next life. And we answer that the next life is in a superior state, and the materialists are in an inferior state. And it's impossible for the superior to be understood by the inferior. But that lack of understanding of the materialist does not prove there's no such thing called life after death. Only that life after death is in the superior state, and it's impossible for the materialists who are in the inferior state to understand the superior state. There's a great difference between something that is impossible and something that is unknown. The mobile phone 50 years ago did not exist, but that was called an unknown non-existence. It's not an impossible non-existent. For an unknown non-existent will eventually become known, but an impossible non-existent will not become possible. So the next life to be understood by the materialist in this life is an impossible scenario. It's not an unknown scenario that one day after a long period of study, the materialist will be able to see the next world. In fact, there is a great wisdom of why we are not shown the next world, explained by Baha'u'llah in his gleanings. I'm going to paraphrase what he said. He said, the mysteries of man's physical death and of his return have not been divulged and still remain unread. By the righteousness of God were it to be revealed, it would evoke such fear and sorrow that some would perish, and others would fill with so much gladness that they wished to die, and beseech with unceasing longing the one true God to hasten their end. This is the wisdom. I'll use myself here to demonstrate the point. If I was a bad person in this world and my punishment in the next world is shown to me, it would evoke such fear and sorrow in me that I will perish. But if I was a good person in this world and my reward in the next life is shown to me, I will be filled with so much gladness that I wish to die, and beseech with unceasing longing the one true God to hasten my end. in that state, I see this world had no meaning anymore. And you don't want to spend a moment in this dust heap. So I beseech God with unceasing longing, meaning I won't stop beseeching God until what I'm begging God for is granted to me. And I can picture myself in that state. If I don't die naturally, I would probably do the deeds with my own hands. All these are new teachings revealed by Baha'u'llah, peculiar to his revelation, never before brought to humanity in the past. And the reason is because we had not the capacity to understand them. And it would do more harm to us than good if advanced teaching is revealed to a generation that have not the capacity to understand them. For instance, one of the teachings that brought by Moses is an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. The gist of this teaching is that if you kill, then you must be killed. And when Jesus Christ came, he said, if someone strikes you on one cheek, you face him the other. The gist of that teaching is forgiveness. Why didn't Moses brought the teaching of forgiveness in his time? It's because his generation cannot understand it. Introducing the teaching of forgiveness at the time of Moses will embolden the perpetrator. It will make the murderer continue on his killing ways. So these were revealed by Baha'u'llah. And one of the teachings new teachings revealed by Baha'u'llah is the injunction to independently investigate truth. That is to say, no man should blindly follow his ancestor and forefathers. Nay, each must see with his own eyes, hear with his own ears, investigate the truth himself, in order that he may follow the truth instead of blind acquiescence and imitations of ancestral beliefs. It is our duty to tell you about Baha'u'llah and his teachings. And it's your responsibility to read and study and investigate it. Thank you, and I wish you well. Whaftai lava, manuela whafawha mai Samoa, soifua.